Join us as we sit down with remarkable individuals from various walks of life who face their fair share of obstacles and emerge with positivity. Each episode, you'll hear inspiring stories, actionable tips, and wisdom that can supercharge your own journey when using adversity as motivation. Let's learn together. Welcome to Lauer Power.
All right, Chad Lauer here with the Lauer Power. Shout out to Brian Persing Masonry, the Plumbing Outlet, GDK Development, and Gene Welsh and their 19 Burger Kings for being our sponsors. I have a special guest today, and this guest means a lot to me because this entire podcast is about using adversity as motivation. And we hear story after story of people who've either dealt with something or they've really gone for it that inspires our audience unlike any other. And Tom Cillo is our guest today. And Tom's a Williamsport native, but this year he's made some national news and a lot of headlines across the nation as he joined the Lycoming College football team at 58 years old. So Tom, welcome to the Lauer Power podcast. And thank you for spending a few minutes with us today.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having me.
Yeah. So Tom, I'd love for our audience to learn a little bit about you. And I know this is a broad question, but tell us a little bit about your journey of, whenever this thought started, or even if you want to go back to, I've read some articles about you mentioning your teenage years, but tell us the story of how this became a reality.
Yeah, I can back up to the teenage years. I grew up in a sports family, absolutely loved competing, baseball, basketball, football, and loved them all. And, when I got to high school, I was 15 years old, signed up for my high school football team, and I quit within a couple days. I had some indiscretions, if you will, of my youth. And, it just took me in a different direction. I had a dream of playing college football, college basketball. Obviously, that never came to fruition when I graduated high school. I just took a different path. And, it was affected by drugs and alcohol. And um, when I was 24 years old, I had a chance to get hired by the city of Williamsport here, but in order to do that, I had to pass a drug test. So I quit doing drugs at that point in my life. I still could continue to drink rather heavily into my 30s. And, now at this point, I'm married. I have children, starting a family, and it just wasn't a good mix. So I had to go in a different direction there as well, and I worked 33 years for the city of Williamsport in the streets department, retired from there early last year, would have been, 2024, and ended up accepting a job at my local high school where I actually went to high school, Williamsport, and I worked there for several months. And, all those years, all that time that went by, people tell you don't live with regret, right? But I don't know of a person on this earth that wouldn't have some regret if they actually lived their life, and excuse me. So I did have this regret of not going to college, of not being a collegiate athlete. And throughout all these years, I honestly felt in my mind I could still pull this off. And I did keep a certain level of fitness and working out over the years. And I talked to a good friend of mine, Dave, who also trains me, by the way. And I said, Dave, I need a change. I think I want to go back to school and I'd like to try to play college football. And Dave was ecstatic. He was ecstatic. He said, I'll start training you. We can prepare for this. We got to get your transcripts. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to move forward with this. And then, you know, I think some cold feet started to hit. And I called Dave one day and said, Dave, I don't know. I'm just not sure. And I'd like to think, I don't know about all people, but many, many people could probably relate to this. When you just about make a move on something, a job or a dream or a goal or a vacation, and then you kind of pull the plug on it. And that's kind of where I was at. I said, Dave, this is a massive risk for me financially. I said, it's a risk for me physically, and it's a risk academically. I said, my goodness, I haven't been in a classroom setting for 41 years. I'm really intimidated by that. And Dave said, Tom, look, he said, academically, he said, you'll figure it out. He said, sit up front, take great notes, pay attention, don't sleep in class. And he said, you'll develop study habits. He said, you'll get that part of it. He said, as far as a physical risk, he said, you could fall in a set of steps. He said, you could slip in the shower. You know, he said, you could get hurt anywhere, really. He said, if you want to do this, I encourage you to do it. And he said, financially, he says, I know you're concerned. I know it's a risk. He said, but honestly, Tom, the only thing in this life that has any real value to it is time. And he said, how are you going to use your time? And he says, I know it's a challenge. He said, but financially, he said, it'll work itself out. And we hung the phone up and I'm like, all right, I'm going through with this. And, again, it's not an easy decision. Staples centered, excuse me, a whole marketing campaign around what? The easy button. You know, you can't do that in life. Life doesn't work that way. It might work for a box of copy paper, but you can't just hit the easy button in life and all your problems go away. So I thought, what, I'm just going to make this change. And, I want to experience some growth. Clearly, you never stop growing. You never stop learning. And so I ended up getting a hold of a gentleman that I'd known for years through the YMCA here. He graduated here in the 80s. He played football here. He's in the Lycoming Hall of Fame. And his name's Mark. I said, Mark, I think I want to go back to school and I want to do it at Lycoming and I'd like to make a shot at the football team. And so he got a hold of the coach. The coach got a hold of me. We talked on the phone and, excuse me, we met probably a week or so later for about an hour at a coffee shop and talked it through. And he didn't make any promises. And he said, look, just come in, go to work and we'll see where this goes. And I said, okay. And boy, I'm telling you, I don't say this boastfully, but man, did I go to work. I got in phenomenal shape. I worked so hard at it. I did. Came into camp in great shape and got through it, man. Yeah, training camp was tough. 2 weeks of long days, 90+ degree weather, but it's been a challenge.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, that's such an inspiring story. We talk a lot on this podcast, about folks who've dealt with adversity. And I love that you're so open with sharing your early struggles, right? And saying, "Hey, I was dealing with drugs and alcohol and I missed that portion of my life and I probably took it for granted, but hey, my life's not over." Right? I mean, that's what you're doing. You're inspiring people by saying, "Hey, I'm willing to go to class." Like, I think we get caught up in the football, like the game day stuff, right? And as a former college athlete, I think if you've never done it yourself, it's hard to understand the classroom, the workout, the practice commitment that nobody else sees, right? The game day is easy, right? That's the easiest day of the week. It's all those other days that you're grinding that nobody sees, right? And that's what's so cool about your story. Now, tell me this. Obviously, I was fortunate enough to speak to your team. I think it was after an 0-4 start. And Clark, who's the head coach, brought me in and Brendan. And at that point, I knew that you guys were going to be okay because there was such strong leadership there. How did the guys on the team accept you when you showed up?
Well, it's Mike. Mike Clark is the head coach. And I'll say this, I never had any organized football experience coming into this. Played a lot of the proverbial sandlot, if you will, growing up. But organized football, I had zero experience. And before I get into the guys, I will say this, Mike Clark is a phenomenal coach. I mean, he did a fantastic job. In my opinion, you can't necessarily fake being genuine. You can't fake being passionate. And this guy loves what he does. And he never stopped believing it in this team and this group of guys, even after the 0-4 start. He did an incredible job. Yeah, just really appreciate him as a coach and as a person, as a man. What a great job he did. But, there were some guys on the team, and understandably so, that were skeptical when I came in. And, I get it. You got a guy 58 years old coming in to play college football. So day one of camp was just nothing but meetings, meals and meetings and kind of getting to know each other. And day two is when we did our testing. So we had to test out in the weight room and we had to test out on vertical jump, broad jump, and I scored pretty well. And actually, I'm well versed in the weight room still, even at my age, and it's a passion of mine. It has been for many years. So I got their attention in the weight room. They're like, okay, So then we go to the field after lunch. Our conditioning test consisted of 30-yard sprints, goal line to 15 and back. And you better step over the 15 too. No
Yeah.
cheating. But we had to do that within 6 seconds, and might not sound too awful, right? But we had to do it 16. And, I'm pleased to say I was 16 for 16, and I had it cooking. I mean, I was, so after the weight room and the conditioning, the guys were like, okay, he's ready to come in and go to work. And, you, as a former collegiate athlete yourself, oh, excuse me. What what a load of running that we did. Camp is tough, but
Yeah.
our relationship, when I say our, me and the guys, the teammates, it just started to build and grow. And, throughout the course of the season, it was absolutely phenomenal. What a great relationship I had with all the guys. It was great.
That's really cool. And listen, I mean, obviously there was a business opportunity too. And I'm an entrepreneur, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I've seen you on, promoting Asper Cream and some other things. Like, talk to us a little bit about, did you know that was going to come, or did you have to work for that, or did that just come based on your kind of the PR that was kind of coming out about your story?
Had no clue that was coming. None.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they reached out to me and inquired about forming a partnership and an NIL deal, and honestly, 2 thumbs up to Asper Cream. They have been absolutely terrific throughout the entire process. And I mean, what a better pitch man, than somebody for a pain relief cream at an advancing age. And it was perfect for their product, and it's been a perfect partnership.
Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, nil deals, and you as a 58-year-old, I totally agree. If I'm a marketer, that was a really cool partnership for you for sure. Now, tell me, okay, so you're preparing for finals. Everybody wants to talk about the football stuff, right? Tell us a little bit about how you've adapted in the classroom.
Oh, I'd be happy to. That we'd be remiss if we didn't cover this. I set some goals for myself coming into this, and clearly some of those were academically. And one of my goals was not to miss one class, barring anything unforeseen. Well, I didn't quite pull that off. I have 4 classes. I have a full course load. I missed one time in all 4 classes, and that was because I had accepted an invite on the Today Show. So I had to travel to New York, spend the night, and, everything in my life at that time was so busy. There was just so much going on, so many requests, so many studies, practices, meetings, what have you. And I kicked it around in my head, and I thought, honestly, how many times in your lifetime would you get an invite for the Today Show? So I accepted. So because of that trip, I missed one time in all 4 classes. Other than that, I had perfect attendance. When we would go to road games, the team would only travel so many people because of cost. And I didn't make the cut. And there's no shame in me saying that, because at the end of the day, I'm still a freshman football player with 0 organized experience, still learning the trade, if you will. So no shame in not making the trip. So what does a guy that loves football do on a Saturday? In my world, you want to sit down and watch college football for about 12 hours. But in the real world, I said, Tom, you better get some studies in. You better take advantage of this time. So on the road games, Saturdays and Sundays, I would spend typically anywhere between 3 to 5 hours in the school library, just doing studies, prep work, and trying to stay ahead of everything, because being a student athlete is tough, man. You would know this, what a challenge time wise and commitment wise. So I took full advantage of those weekends when I did not travel with the team. And now that I have a final today and a final tomorrow. I took 2 yesterday. Another goal of mine was to make the dean's list. And I know I'm going to finish with 2 A's, probably a B, and the 4th one is borderline. So depending on how I score on these final exams, I very well could make the dean's list. And
Wow.
That would be very rewarding for me personally after 41 years outside of the classroom, and the fact that that had intimidated me more than any other part of this process. So that's been a goal of mine, and I haven't gotten to this point by accident. I've grinded in the classroom as well as on the football field to get to this point.
Yeah, that's spectacular. And, I talk on this podcast about lifelong learning, and I get that from my mom. I would talk to her, and she would just be in a class, bloom in her 50s. Like she wants to learn, and it's really cool that you've committed to that. Again, that's the stuff that nobody sees, right? They don't see, they hear about your football story, but that's a big part of being a student athlete. Now, I have to ask you, what was it like being on the Today Show?
It was it was pretty surreal. I had gotten in Monday night into New York City, Manhattan, 9:30, 10 o'clock on a Monday night, and, by the way, traffic doesn't slow down even at that point. So I got in, they had reserved a hotel room for me, thank goodness, and, I found a parking garage, got to the hotel. I'm just looking out the window and it's definitely different from Williamsport, and I've been to the city before, but it's just it's a different place,
Yep.
and I went down, I thought, "I'm gonna get something to eat." I got some chow off a food truck, went to bed, and, Tuesday morning, I walk over to the Today Show, and they checked me through security, and this was pretty surreal, and I get backstage, and a woman who I'd been communicating with to set all this up, she said, "Hey, Tom, how you feeling?" I said, "I'm nervous. I'm nervous about," and she says, "Don't be nervous." She said, "It is so chill here." She said, "You'll see." And she said, "Look, if it's any consolation, Allen Iverson was just here, and he said the same thing." And I said, "Well, okay, then if Allen's okay, then I guess I'm okay." So,
What an awesome follow, Allen Iverson. That's really
yes.
cool.
So I get out on the set and I'm sitting on the sofa. Thank goodness they had been in the week before and done a little piece to make a video tribute, to this journey. So they put that on first. So while I'm out on the sofa, I'm dabbing sweat off my forehead because
Yeah.
this is a new experience for me. And I got myself calmed down. And once they started asking questions, I had gotten back to normal, if you will. And it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. It was a great experience.
That's really, really neat. And Tom, I gotta tell you, just the 20 minutes we've spent together, you said something to me about like, you can tell if people are authentic. And I think the coolest part about your story is you're authentic, you admit you're nervous. You admit, hey, I have doubts. You admit, oh, hey, maybe I struggled with this in the past. That's the thing that I think connects with everybody, right? You're not here acting like you're this invincible, 58-year-old with this ego. You're being very honest and forthright and telling the real story. And I gotta tell you, I think that's what makes your story, so tremendous. I really do. So to wrap it up, I have to ask, what is the future? Are you gonna be playing into your 60s? I know you're a freshman, but are we gonna be saying, "Hey, Asper Cream's gonna be promoting the 60-year-old college football player," or what do you think the future holds for you?
Well, the future holds, first of all, during break, I have to get more tech savvy. That's the immediate future. But honestly, going forward, I have to kind of bat this around in my head. I really do love basketball also. And I'm really considering playing another sport. To be honest, basketball could be my best sport. So I love football. I'd love to come back and, I just gotta, when school ends and the studies end, for the moment, I gotta just sit back and think about what I wanna do and make some decisions, but
Hey, nothing would make me happier than seeing you on the basketball court. I mean, I would love to see that. That would be a really cool future goal and really, really good stuff, Tom. I appreciate you joining me here for 22 minutes in the midst of final exams. And yeah, I'm looking forward to connecting with you more in the future. And thanks again for being a guest.
yeah, I would love that, and thank you for all the kind words, and yeah, appreciate your time.
All right, Tom. Have a great day.
Yep, you too. Thank you.
What an awesome interview with Tom Cillo. He's just so down to earth and honest and truly inspiring. Behind the scenes, he talked to me about folks from all over the world that have reached out to him, Mexico, Bosnia, Africa, that were inspired by his story. And my leadership topic of the day is, who are you inspiring, right? Where are you showing up when the world says you shouldn't? Nobody in the world says a 58-year-old should be in a college classroom. Nobody in the world says a 58-year-old should be on a college football field, right? And being disruptive and doing what everybody else is saying you shouldn't do is exactly why Tom Cillo's story is so inspiring. One of my mentors, my former college roommate and friend, Nate Snyder's dad, Brian Snyder, he used to say, the Snyders show up, we show up, okay? And half the battle is showing up. And who cares what other people think of you? It's a really, really cool story. Listen, I hope that you take some nuggets from Tom Cillo that inspire you to do something that's been in the back of your mind and say, hey, you only get one shot at this life. Go do something disruptive. Go do something that you have regret for. Go fix something that has been in the back of your mind for a couple years and you just haven't gotten to it, right? So again, who are you inspiring? Go do something that the world says we shouldn't do, and our lives are going to be that much more full. Thank you for listening. Again, if you want to hit that subscribe button, if you like our messaging of using adversity as motivation, it goes a long way to helping us do what we do. Big shout out to Brian Persing Masonry, the Plumbing Outlet, and GDK Development for allowing us to produce these podcasts and to sponsor our efforts of using adversity as motivation. Can't wait to get started on the next one.
Are you a business owner, a leader, or an aspiring achiever looking to turn life's challenges into powerful fuel for your success? You've come to the right place. Get ready to unlock the secrets to turning life's hardships into your most powerful ally. Your hosts, along with our incredible guests, will help you tap into your own Lauer Power and guide you towards the success you've always dreamed of.